Okay, let's try that again. Happy birthday!
Yay!
Moral T is
It's 1
years
years
old.
old.
The neat thing is, Anna Gray and I were not going to do a podcast, and we started going. We were sharing a panini over the table, and just catching up. And all of a sudden, we started ranting, and just not ranting, but just talking about how parallel our emotions, our feelings. I don't want it to all be feelings based, but actually, a lot of times that's what we talk about.
Okay, but it's like we're on the same wavelength because how you were describing feeling spiritually off yesterday.
Wonky.
Yes,
spiritual wonky.
At first I thought, when I first read that text, I thought you meant physically. I was like, oh, I physically felt good. And then I was like, wait, she said spiritually because it's definitely been me. And then when we were breaking bread, breaking paninis and perfect bars.
And having good cheese. Yeah.
It was very insane. And from how different our perspectives can be from where we are in life with these different things, yet it's like the same emotions.
It is.
You know?
So, to start the thing, I will tell you, I woke up last night, and for the last week, I have felt this sense of just nagging at me. And then I slipped into this, okay, is this, some sort of, not the nagging part, but is God trying to tell me something, or has the enemy hopped on the bandwagon? But so last night in the middle of the night, I woke up and it was just full-blown anxiety. And I just said, okay, God, whatever's going on, do some help. It was even undefinable, which, confusion is not of the Lord, but I was like, is it so many things? Is it so many things? And that's what I shared over the table. We gathered at the table, and we kind of narrowed it down to, we feel this pressure with money.
As I checked my bank accounts and just paid taxes,
and maybe it's also the season too. 'Tis the season.
It's this is what I found strange. Okay, not relieving, and that I'm happy you do the same thing, but I cannot stand it. I hate it. Like logging on and looking at my bank accounts and seeing the money, because there's subjectively a number that I personally, for whatever reason, decided my savings account needs to look like my online purchases and my business account in order to feel secure enough.
Yes.
And I have nightmares over money. Like if I could pinpoint one of my biggest fears in life, because there are a lot of things like financial ruin. But you said you woke up.
Well, wait, I do want to go back. The idea of these nightmares, because it was interesting. I was just thinking about this a long time ago. It had to be 20 or the early, before 2010 or whatever. Mike Nance at church took us through financial peace, and that's a Dave Ramsey thing. I don't know how many people in our church. I think all our church eventually went through it at that time. I just burnt myself a tea. I bought myself some moral tea.
Do you need some cold water?
I was baptized in some moral tea, but it was, the principles were so good, and I went through there, and I loved the whole. I mean, because like financially, there was so much going wrong in our lives, that it gave me a measure of, okay, this is what you do first, this is what you do second, this is what you do, what I really, really needed. And I mean, to this day, I hearken back to, many of his things. But it was relieving. And I was thinking, it was the first time I felt, oh, okay, there's X amount of dollars, and this is how I'm going to outlook, my life, my finances. But then you get away from that, or you grow in it. Let's say something happens and you grow, like your career grows, or you lose a spouse, or you're single, and then all of a sudden you realize, and this is where the heart of the matter is, it's up to us.
Yes. Yeah.
And like Dave Ramsey's not talking in my ear right now, it's so heavy, and I don't know what to do about that. It's just like, I know I'm leaning on the Lord. It says that in Proverbs 3, lean on the Lord, forget. No, that's a different one. But, don't lean on your own understanding. Okay, so we want to lean on the Lord's understanding. But it sure is nice. And I feel very much like 1 Samuel, where I want a king. But, it would be nice to have a man to lean on financially.
Do you feel like people see you as independent and financially well off, and probably, do you feel misunderstood in that struggle?
I feel...
It's like 2 questions in one.
Yeah, that's doozy.
Like shampoo and conditioner in one bottle from Swamp.
For only $1.59.
Yeah, which is the budget, which will make me stress over
that
money.
was pre-COVID prices.
It'll make your hair feel like straw, but...
But it's easy peasy. I don't know how people view me. I just know, we have to do what we have to do because we have to do it.
Like
and
survival?
If we don't do it, or if we don't pay our taxes, if we don't gather it together, if we don't answer the email, it gets lost in the cracks. And there's some things you can miss out on, but you don't miss out on the IRS. You want to not miss out on that. So yes, I think it can look like, oh, she can handle this. I know a lot of, thank heavens I have my son. He helps a lot. My daughter. In the sense of talking to me, have you done this with, Mom, you got this email or whatever. And I really like it. And I purposely put my money, my investments in another bank that I have to ask for accountability. It helps fund some of my lifestyle, but I have to ask for not accountability, but I have to ask for certain things over and above. But then we were talking at the table, I feel like a little kid going up, please sir, may I have some more?
Can I have some allowance? I wash the dishes.
I need, like, this
office.
is what I did. I did the dishes for, 30 days, But, so it feels a little weird that way, but I do it because, just for safekeeping reasons, because I want to, not make impulsive decisions. It's just a safeguard for me. But at the same time, Anna Gray, I'm 62. When do I quit feeling like I'm a adolescent child saying, Mom, can I go to 7-Eleven? And I don't know. I don't know how to have that peace because I woke up in the middle of the night and I knew immediately I'm worried over spending money.
What's your biggest, personally, your biggest fear financially?
Well,
if you could take it to its absolute extreme when you're awake at night.
Well, Dave Ramsey says we women have a security gland.
It's true. As much as I don't want to say it, it's true.
And I think the one thing that he may not have alluded to, or he may for singles, is when you're single, you don't have someone else you can lean on. Your security gland is you can't lean on somebody and say, well, how are we going to do this? Or what should we do? Now obviously we have God, and I've been praying to God about certain situations, like, God, should I do this? Should I not? What should I do? And Randy Alcorn had the best blog. My buddy Randy had the best blog, is about why not, pray about financial matters, big ones, before we do things. Because you never know what God might do. So I've been doing that on a number of things. Gotten no answers, and I'm like, okay, that's okay too, because I know that God heard me. So I think the number one fear is making a mistake.
As in, like, do you have a fear that if you make one mistake, that's going to bring everything else to ruin and impact other people?
I've already made the mistake because I bought the RV. I didn't buy it in the used parking lot. I bought the new one. It's a beautiful RV, but I also picked up, and I alluded that in another podcast, but I also picked up another hobby. and that was ballroom dancing. And something had to give. I couldn't do two
A
because
tale of two hobbies.
I tell it two hobbies because then I also have, I have things I want to write and finish. There's only so many hours in the day. And so I ended up taking a big hit on that RV. And so I'm afraid that, like, it's even known in my family, my kids go, it's like called the RV thing. You don't want to do the RV thing again, do you? Or Mom, I said, no, I don't want to do the RV thing, but I'm afraid I am.
But was it really a mistake, do you think? Or do you just see it as it was a financial hit and you learned from it?
It was a financial hit, and I did learn from it. And I didn't buy it impulsively. I looked at it, I waited, I studied. I had people go down there and look at it with me and drive around with it. And I thought of all the places I could go. I mean, the salesman was even great. He was even, how are you going to use this? And I was like, that's a good question. He whips out the KOA. That's safe for me to go to a KOA where there's other people. So I thought, Tinkerbell, my trusty dog, and I would hop on board and go. My son later said to me, and he's exactly right. He said, Mommy, it would have been better probably, and he was even on board with that for, a season. And he said, it would have been better for you since you are by yourself. And it is so technology driven to have rented one to see if you're comfortable doing it.
And you're like, oops.
Oops. And he's right. It would have been better to spend the money on a rental than on the price of a new one. So I guess it's making a mistake that's so irredeemable.
I know what you mean too about having someone to answer to. Like when you were describing that, the ironic thing that comes to my mind is this. Like, I love independence. But I also, and I don't want to speak for all females, but I do think for a lot of us, an innate craving is for someone, not just to do all the work for us, not in that, because we're capable of getting our hands dirty and we've carried the weight of the world on our shoulders already, but someone to help ease the burden.
Yeah.
And also like this idea of, we crave independence, yet ultimately I think we also do crave and desire, or at least I desire, I want to say authority of sorts, but yes, because that provides structure and boundaries. And I know when we talked with Christy Stutzman in one of our previous podcasts, which you all should check out, on toxic femininity.
Oh, you said that well.
That was really hard.
Five times.
My neurons had to slow down. We talked about the same thing of boundaries leading to freedom, but I've seen the same way because, like, okay, when you were talking about how you wake up in the middle of the night with this, like, is like a visceral anxiety you feel, physically.
Yes. I mean, it woke me up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm anxious. I'm like, what?
Well, that's the one topic that constantly resurfaces in my brain. It's like my love life, or current not so love life, and money. But I'm like, I think they do strangely coincide.
Yes.
Because it's not that I seek a life partner just to make bank. And I have to do nothing because I do enjoy working. I love what I do within my work and my two humble little businesses. However, it also is, it is the same anxiety in how you describe making a mistake.
Yeah.
And actually it's funny because right before we recorded, I opened my email and have a Duke Energy bill, which I'm like, hey, it's fine. But it's this fear. For me, it's like money running out.
Yes.
Literally it's running out because it's like I've worked so hard. And I think when you've experienced things in the past too, or at least for me, where like you've experienced scarcity or you've made mistakes yourself or you've seen other people in financial ruin and like the results of that. Like the fact that I have nightmares about money, and the one nightmare I will probably forever and always remember is somehow I was looking at this screen and it had a dollar bill sign and this like large sum of money that like represented my savings account, and it starts ticking down really fast till it gets to zero.
Wow, that was the stock exchange.
Seriously. It was this awful feeling, and I woke up with this deep fear of, what if I lose my money? Like, lose my savings account, which it isn't so much the money, but the security. And I wonder if it's the same way because, like, I don't want to say just having a sole provider and,
Well,
gender roles and the idea of biblical manhood and womanhood is only security, but it is that. And
it is.
when you don't have that life partnership going and the way the world is on your shoulders, you are the one responsible for doing it all.
And you can be married and not have that. Because I was like that. I was married and I didn't have that. It was still, how am I going to make this happen?
Are you comfortable describing some of the experiences?
No,
even if you have to keep it vague.
It was very much a very worrisome time because I also had little kids and I was trying to figure out how to do this, how to do that. And, they'll tell a different story, like as opposed to my kids now who are at home because they're almost a decade younger. They'll go, wow, you eat out far more than we ever got to. My kids remember the envelopes, the Dave Ramsey envelopes.
I remember those from my parents.
They don't remember it at all because I don't follow it as like I should, and so they remember that. But I also think there's a logical reason when you look at, and this is not a hint on political parties. This is a hint on how political parties are running our world. When you see the national debt, which is beyond imagination, when you see the bills that come through that should be clean and simple, and they have 800 things tacked on.
They need a Dave Ramsey wallet.
They really need a wallet, and they need to say, okay, we're sticking to these 3 items that are in the Constitution, and we're sticking to that. We're not going to fund all these other things. So, when you see how the country's running, I think we have a combination of fears. And then you look at April 15th, and if you notice during COVID, they had changed the date, but it's...
For the extension.
The convenient April 15th day is marked, on my Google Calendar because it comes up automatically. But the thing is, there's this almost, and I don't want to use the word in an improper fashion, but collective worry.
Yeah. Where it's a bunch of...
It's
combined.
not just your worry. You have friends who are like, wow, I got just hit with this bill or something, and they are mourning the fact that they're having to come up with something. So I think it's a collective thing as well as just personal thing. And another thing, I think, because it is tax day, I think we probably feel it we're hyper sensitive to it because everybody's getting emails from their accountants, or they're going to H&R Block, where I used to go all the time and have them do it when I was young, or they're doing their taxes themselves, and we're all worried. We're all like, what's the bottom
waiting
line
for the impending
here?
doom when they go and tell you the amount you owe.
Yes, and I think there's also, I just thought about this. We're worried about wasting our money. We're worried about where we tell our dollars to go. But yet, the government seems a little less worried about spending our money. And so it seems there might be a little frustration in our worry.
As a self-employed human who wonders why a lofty percentage of her money just went to people she doesn't even like. Yeah. Well, it's... I find myself in this place too. I can have everything I need and then some, and it's still a fear.
Yes.
Because the tax thing happened. I went to my accountant. I gave for every bit of everything, and I waited a month, and I had from the entire year, everything I had set away for taxes, it ended up being a little less than what I anticipated. Because I'm like, okay, if it's this amount, that's going to be really bad, and I'll partially hate my life for a day or two, and then it's fine. But it was under, so I had it. I didn't have to
that's good.
come up with it, yet it's still, even the act of paying it, even seeing the numbers brings this anxiety I can't describe. And same with just running. Like, it's not like I run these huge corporate businesses or something, but my 2 small businesses, they are my sole income. And I work really, really hard for them. And you are a business owner as well, an investor. So you obviously you have much more experience than I do.
No, I just have people who help.
And being an ethical full entrepreneur, I was about to say philanthropist.
Philanthropist.
I can't talk today.
Yeah, no. I don't know. I think the fears are still, it boils down to that emotional of running out. Like I told you, like when you get to be my age with your assets or your retirement, and I'm not in retirement, but whatever you've saved or whatever's been saved, or what, like if you've collected, you've been given an inheritance, whatever the case may be, and you have it with a financial person, they'll extrapolate to where they think you're going to die. So,
oh my God.
So you see yourself on paper, for the next 80, to your 86. And you're like, okay, this is this and this is that, and this is how much you can do. And anything over that, you're going to start eating into the principal, and you don't ever want to mess with the principal because that's the generator of your little, your living. Instead of, most people invest and then they put it back into their investment so it can grow. And that's something for the younger people, but when you get to be my age, you're like, okay, I'm living on that. Or not always. But the wild thing is to see it over the years and say, okay, somehow I have to make this all work, for X amount of years. Only God knows my time. So it's frustrating. There's so many things. It's like I'm young. When you're young, you're worried about really the same things you are when you're old. It's just a different.
Like I feel this though because, okay, my fear too is not just running out of money, but being piled in debt from things out of my control, because that happened to me in 2022. So I'll just be like totally candid with all of them. Yeah. The crisis year of 2022. Like I was in a car accident and I had 2 ER bills on no medical insurance because, hello, I'm a starving artist and I can't afford healthcare currently. So I pay out of pocket. And
newsflash, I do MediShare. I'm hoping it'll work.
Really?
Yeah.
I've been told, but MediShare is too expensive to me too.
I want out of the insurance
I want everyone
system.
to see how low of a social class I am. So I should just pull up my bank statements and be like, here's my savings.
I just say to them, self-pay, and then they send you to...
Well, I had a lot of things I was hit with. Oh, and a woman trying to sue me.
Yes, you did.
Which a lot of people looked at like, oh, that would never happen. It went to every extreme. Like, I literally thought I was going to go to Los Angeles and have to face this fraud. I want to say her name on here, but I'm going to not because it's very illegal.
Yeah, don't do it.
No, I will not. Don't worry. I can see your motherly concern. You're like, oh no, please don't actually do it. No, I would not for real say ever disclose anyone's name from
really
fraud.
Did.
No, it was this. It was the insanity of all of it and feeling so powerless. Yeah. So all that combined, I was like, it took me almost 2 years to pay off my medical debt. It was crazy, which I did back in December. I was like, woo, finally. But it's this awful feeling of, and even when I am making great strides financially and, working with ideal clients and things seem on the up and up, I'm like, woo, the high of life. I have this impending fear that something really bad is going to happen next because that has been the theme. Right. And it's not a self-fulfilled prophecy because it's things I literally can't control, that hit you and you're like, so it's a fear of, it's a fear of running out of money. It's a fear of not having enough. It's a fear of
misusing it.
Yes. And and I have that same thought of like, oh, I just wish sometimes that I had a life partner who could just be over all this, or just someone to tell me what to do, when to do it, how exactly to spin it, how exactly I could even invest it in certain ways so that I'm not sitting with just a bunch of, It's so as a 27-year-old,
but it would be nice just to discuss these things.
Yeah.
With somebody that cared about your joint efforts to be in marriage to be in marriage. But, I also think I don't know. I do feel there is a point in all this that, particularly me waking up in the middle of the night last night, I could have carried that worry all by myself. But it was so astounding to me. The first thing, I woke up from a dead sleep and I said out loud, I am anxious. Like totally in my right mind, totally understanding what I was saying. And then I started talking to God about it. I said, God, why is this happening? Why am I anxious? What's going on here? And I go, I can't even figure this out. Why? I said, can you handle it, please? And I think ultimately, Anna Gray, with these fears and concerns, we have to take them to Him, because I do think, we know, we read enough of the Bible, you read enough of history. There are times of scarcity. There are times that people have, and then all of a sudden they don't. You think about Job, like he had, and then he had no longer. So I do think there's a part where we have to be our second response after the anxiety, because the anxiety will just come out of nowhere, is like, okay, I need to go to the Lord or something, and then I want, yes, and dear God, by the way, would you send my friend Anna Gray a wonderful husband? I pray.
That sounds like,
yeah.
They're like, I need someone to rescue me. But it's the thought of like, if only someone else there.
Yeah.
Just do it.
But I do think we ultimately have to trust in the Lord, because we very well may not have, bank accounts. Things may change, whatever the case may be. And somehow I look back on it, the one experience, and I think you're old enough now to look back on it, is you remember times of not having a lot. And I remember times of not, like with my parents when they were starting their businesses, or their business. And then I remember when I was in Miami not having a lot, and when we moved to Thomasville not having a lot because we were starting business or redoing our business up here. Somehow God provides. It just, I looked at my bank account one time when the kids were little, and I just went, that has to last me a month.
Yeah, it's like, and you realize, wait, I'm still surviving, everything's good, but, okay, something else you said earlier too, though, that I want to ask you about, because you felt this guilt for making some decisions financially too, right? Like, even good decisions, because that's how I felt as well.
It's not...
As you prepare to travel and as I prepare to go to Costa Rica.
Well, no, not even luxurious. Not luxurious, but off the wall, like not necessary kind of things. Like, this is not a medical bill that you can go, I hate doing this, but you realize you have to pay it. But doing something of your own free will because you want to do it, having a luxury of some sort.
Why does it feel so wrong, though?
I know, like
to enjoy it.
A pedicure, anything from a pedicure to, buying a dress that you normally wouldn't buy, or taking a trip you normally wouldn't take. I don't know why.
Do you think it's because you're so used to money almost having this negative context? I don't want to say negative context, but seeing negative results from money being misused, or seeing what can happen when, there's a financial crisis. That I don't know, like for me, it feels like this innate, like the first, I don't know what words go through your head when you make a decision, like, whether it's a trip you're taking or a purchase, but for me, it's like the first words, like I was saying earlier, in my head, the first thoughts are, oh, you're stupid, you're being irresponsible. Even if I can look and go through the logical checklist of all my fixed expenses are taken care of. I've been really, I'm very, I think, responsible with money. I'm no pro with investments and things beyond my scope of, where I'm at right now, but I can look at everything so logically and think, okay, I don't have debt here, here, and here. Like, I'm debt free. And
which is a blessing.
It is. However, those are the first words that go through my head. Like, even though I don't, for example, go to Costa Rica every single week or plan these elaborate travels, I try to be intentional and, but it's like I feel bad for enjoying something or even, like buying a dress or something. Why, though?
I don't know. I think...
Diagnose it.
Well, I don't know, except for you look around the world, we're privileged in our nation.
That is a thought that goes through my head.
But, and then I even slip into, am I giving because I'm being a cheerful giver, or am I doing this kind of as appeasement for having, spent my money over here?
Oh, to make up for it, to feel better. Oh, man. Yeah,
I mean, it's like, boy, money runs deep in the heart issue. So the whole motive behind it, I don't know. I do think my first thought, I don't often always say it, like when the kids suggest a trip or something, my first thought is always, how much is that going to cost? And it's because I'm sitting here thinking, and then my first thought is, I love my children. I want to go somewhere with them, and I'm appreciative that I could do something like this. My second thought is, how much is it going to cost? Like how bougie is somebody going to go? And then usually, if I do something to stay at a better hotel or something, then I feel, I shouldn't do that. I should be staying in a hostel with all the other 26-year-olds.
Who don't use AC and keep the window closed.
Yeah,
it's 5 of you in one room.
Or I should just do the Airbnb instead of the hotel.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's, I don't know. I can't tell if it's. It almost makes me wonder if money, the feelings of money for women, is not a generational thing.
Yeah, because you described it as like a generational curse.
I did. Well, not even
type
perhaps
of a deal.
A curse. I mean, because I've talked about this before. Yeah, my grandmothers were born in the way back. Children, there was a thing called the 1900s. And both of them were born in the early 1900s. My grandfather was actually born in the late 1800s. So they went through how many wars, how many upswings, downswings. They went through the Great Depression. They went through other recessions. They experienced it. And then, where we think, and I know I've said this a million times, I've probably told you a million times, but where we think the cutoff is they went through that, it doesn't affect us. Well, yes, it does. My mom, to the day she went to heaven, washed her plastic bags out to save
really?
them. Yes,
whoa!
Or she'd have somebody wash them for her if she couldn't because of her cancer. And she would keep food in her refrigerator for 2 weeks. In case she needed to have it, I guess, I don't know what else, or she would give it to her sister, and my aunt would just take it and nod and then throw it away because she knew it had sat in my mom's refrigerator and my mom wasn't, she could have been wacko at that time. I mean, not wacko, she was always in her right mind, but they just lived differently.
My great-grandmother was very similar because she was also a depression survivor. Yeah. She was great with money, though. Her investments in the stock market, which is interesting since that was the whole crash in the Depression. But when her house was being cleaned out before she moved to a retirement home, my grandparents found in her basement jars upon jars upon jars of mayonnaise, packs upon packs of nightgowns, and oh my gosh, there was one more thing. It was something that you could salvage, but she would just see stuff on sale and she would stock up. And it's so interesting because even though I wasn't a depression survivor, some of that mindset of even stocking up on things and having it for survival feels instilled in my DNA, which there's an interesting book on trauma. I don't want to say being passed down, but
generational.
Yeah,
What's
but
it
like a
called?
very anatomical viewpoint. Oh my gosh, I wish I could remember.
Okay, well, we'll post it in the show notes.
Yeah, we will post it in the show notes when I think of it at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
But she had the same behaviors, and it's interesting to see and look at things like that. Or your mom washing bags out. I'm thinking, wow, that's so extreme. But then it's like, when you look internally at your own habits or mindset and think, wait, like, why did I think that? Or why do I view it this way? It's like the apple doesn't fall as far from the tree as we thought.
And I can tell you, I can forget that I have, because we have 2 refrigerators. We have one downstairs that we only use for family gatherings, because there's that one upstairs is only good for the people who live in the house. You know, it's
almond milk and perfect bars and kimchi.
That's really, and it's always blueberries and yogurt and things like that. But
very crunchy lifestyle.
But what happens is when someone changes it and they'll put something downstairs and I won't know about it. And someone will go, like Lily will go, Mom, there's meat downstairs. And I'm like, when did we get that? And it's, well, we got that about a week and a half ago. And I'm like, oh no, because, you know, raw meat goes bad really quickly. Now, if we were hungry, we would all eat it. But I think what I hate is the waste. Like, I do that and I feel so horrible in so many ways. And I ask the Lord to make me a good steward, because I feel like, wow, somebody else in another country would just not know it. They could feed their whole family on this little pack of hamburger that I let spoil. And then you think about inflation right now, and everyone's living from paycheck to paycheck, you know, or a lot of people are. And I'm thinking, so I really try not to waste, but I hate it when I waste. I feel this sick feeling in me.
Like you've done this inherent, like, wrong.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like I was like, Lord, please forgive me. Please forgive me. Because it feels like not being a good steward. And maybe that's what it comes down to is, am I feeling guilty with God about being the steward the way I am? If I go to a ballroom dance, or if I take a trip, not necessarily with my kids, or if I take a trip by myself, you know, that, like, if I'm taking somebody, I'm like, oh, I'm loving on them. If I take a trip by myself,
how dare I enjoy life for the one walking time I can.
Yeah. So, you know, of course, going alone, because, you know, which brings us back to being seen as alpha women.
I was literally just thinking that, because, like, okay. I swear we're on the same wavelength, because I know we were ranting of this earlier, but before the words even rolled off your tongue and you said alone, I'm like, the independence thing, alpha females, like, okay, that, like, this is something I've thought about for a while now, but it is indeed the idea that, like, with the love life, with being seen as, like, strong, independent women, what have you, like, I have been told from other people that I seem like I have all these things going for me, you know, these are, like, confidence and these different things, and on the outside it might appear that way, but what people don't understand is, like, you have to, like, make yourself become confident, because you will get crapped on and you're not going to survive if you don't.
Yeah.
If you, like, have these weaker parts of yourself, you become vulnerable, you become needy, pathetic. That was a story of my life in LA with so many situations where, like, it's recycle. So what people don't understand is I have had to do that to survive. You've had to do that to survive. It's not just because I want to be a boss babe or, like, you know, the self-employed work. How it's
I'm
almost
okay by myself, sitting and having dinner by myself.
Yeah, exactly.
In a restaurant by myself, in a hotel by myself.
Yeah, but, like, men, okay, I have experienced and been told by a few people that it's, like, it's almost perceived as this, like, threat, but what I don't know what to say is, like, I can't, if I drop everything I'm doing, to date someone, like, are we supposed to become softer, sweeter, more passive? Maybe those are more character traits, but like less independent when it's like you have to be. What I mean by soft, sweet, and passive is like, do you just dumb down your like values and the drive you literally have to remain independent?
No,
not from men, but it's like,
I think you wait for the man who goes, okay, she's independent. She's not an alpha female, whatever that definition might be. I guess that means you're top of the pack.
Well, there's two different types of alpha female. Like, alpha female, like
what is A and B?
A alpha female is the boss babe who doesn't need a man, who is probably hyper feministic, and they have a bit of a dogmatic approach and seeing themselves as almost elevated above men. Maybe a little more sterile in their approach to people. The other type, an alpha female is just like a strong woman ultimately, but I think there's another type where you're like an accidental alpha female. Like, you can do a lot of things that men can do. Like my former roommate, for example, she could build things. She could do plumbing. And I told her,
which is so
she's such
bad.
Yes, but she's so feminine too, and it's not that she feels she has to prove something.
Right.
I'm the same way. I can't build things. I can screw in light bulbs, but I like in traveling, or in moving across the country, like doing all these different things that people are like, oh, you do that by yourself. But I'm like,
you have
two
to.
different types.
If you didn't, I mean, you could wait. Come here.
Yeah.
I mean, you could wait for someone to do it with you, but the chances of that happening are, I mean, why wait when that's what you need to do,
I was told by a guy last year, that I should be more of a damsel in distress. Like, if you need help, I can't.
Excuse me, do you have a bag where I can vomit?
I can't.
No.
Okay, sorry. I'm just overtaking the mic, but there's just so much inside.
Well, maybe we are damsels in distress because we're saying distress, but we're not. That does.
But it's not begging for help and using as the facade, like dumbing yourself down for it.
No, that's not right.
Because okay.
Did
the
you
alpha
really
female,
say that?
You can be vulnerable and share your basic human needs, and that you want that you love. Everyone, hold your breath. Gender roles, but also.
You said
the
it.
work boots. See, this is like an alpha female. Pink shorts and like work boots. Fashion boots.
Our PA Lily is really rocking it.
But yes, I was told that, and I've heard other people describe women who were like business owners who are well off financially, that they're too masculine. But when I look at them, really what I see are just women who are very assured. They're making wise decisions. They're not waiting for someone to tell them what to do. They want to be loved. Yeah. They want to be in the same way, I think, other women who feel this need, like, oh, I have to have a man just to provide for me. Whereas I'm in this place where I've mentally decided over the last couple years, like, I want to make decisions financially and within my personal life as though I won't have a life partner. Not to push people away, not in that sense, but like, okay, I want to be wise financially so that I'm not banking on something that's not necessarily going to. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I mean, if you just 27-year-old.
No. I mean, the deal is you have to learn it. You have to figure it out because it is your plan. And I mean, if you're waiting for Mystery X man, and he's not here yet, you have to know it. But the idea of eating someone alive. I don't know, Anna Gray. Yeah, I guess we do give off that kind of vibe at times, but it's.
How do you tell people that you've had, like, because I don't feel that either of us push people away, right? No. It's because what I've been told is just by almost the things I do are independent, but as far as being with people, allowing others, and I do feel like I'm vulnerable with that and expressing even needs, but I mean, what am I supposed to do? Just like stop working?
No, honestly.
Go in a cardboard box with no shoes and twist my hair?
Honestly, I think you just can't worry about the public opinion. You just have to be who you are, and the right man will want to find out more about you, yes or no, or we're going to scare them. And if we're going to scare a man, then good riddance.
Were they too passive to begin?
Yes, I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
So
we love you, men. We do.
Yeah,
but this is just a tale of two women.
I mean, I feel for men right now. I don't think they know what they can do, like a single male, either my age or your age. I think they're very fearful.
How do you feel in this place? So, like, do you feel like people see you as an alpha female? Do you feel that you feel?
I know for a fact people
Tell me about your
see
feelings.
me. I will tell you about my feelings.
Oh.
No, I was having a conversation with my brother, my dear brother, Roger, and I had told him something, and this happened October of last year. And I said something to him, and he was talking about my sister whose husband has since passed and how much he didn't want to see her alone. I said, yeah. I said, Roger, it is really hard being alone. And he's going, what? And I didn't realize it. But I said, Roger, I'm really alone at times. You know, I'm like, yes, my life, I do my life. I live my life. The Lord is with me. But there are times you're alone, you know, that when you don't have somebody walking with you or beside you. And you can, and again, like I said, you can even be that way when you're in marriage. You can be alone. So, yes, people think that we can handle it. But I also think I've seen, particularly in my church, they're doing this kind of shepherd thing. And my small group leader, my old small group leader, her husband, I think, is like my shepherd. And so he will, and not inappropriately, but he'll text me, he goes,
Sorry.
like, are you okay? You know, like if I'm not there that Sunday, not where were you? We're kicking. Yeah. But are you doing all right? You know, just checking up. And it's a very biblical thing where, you know, they broke it down and, you know, I had people over the widows and orphans, which we count as kind of neither of them. We're not either of those, but we're in a category of single women.
Yeah.
So no, I think people see you, and then sometimes you do have to tell them that, yes, this is an independent life. I'm having the time of my life, but I miss having, you know, a partner, a life partner, you know. And
what is it? So you mentioned like feeling alone with that, which I think is an interesting thought, because as we simultaneously say like that desire for someone to just like take the reins, it also is so true that it's possible like you can be with somebody and feel just as disconnected. Like I was taking a walk the other day with a friend of mine. We were on a trail and we were talking about relationships and love and breakups and all the fun stuff. And she phrased something so beautifully. She said, when he held my hand, she said, it's like he wasn't with me. And I was like, whoa, that was so deep. Yeah. She said, you know, he would hold my hand, but it was like he wasn't there. And I was like, I know exactly what you mean. You can feel alone even with somebody. Yeah. But I think in each of us is the desire that someone would have the desire to want to, from the overflowing goodness of their heart, want to naturally be a protector over you and not in a damsel distress kind of way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. In other words, step up and do his God-given right as husband. And that does not mean he lords it over you. Submission doesn't mean that we are, you know, slaves, you know, to our husbands. It just means that we have this wonderful relationship where we're committed. And I submit to him, and in that he serves me, and it's a beautiful thing. And those words sound all wonky because it sounds like, you know, I sit on any round and eat bonbons or something like that. I don't know, but
no way.
The one thing you mentioned is when I feel for your friend who's holding the hand of somebody.
Was.
It was.
No longer.
I remember a situation in my past where I delegated all the bill paying over because I had lost my parents and or my dad or my mom, I forget who. And in this, it didn't get done. And I realized you have to be careful who you delegate to. You really do need.
As in who you're choosing to.
Yes,
be. Right,
I really
right.
hate to say it. I think
say it.
Well, we talked about one-nighters last week.
Cadavers, hard-ons, and one-nighters.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think this week we need to say, when you are looking at a spouse, it is only fair and right to, not even fair, but wise, to talk about money and how is money going to be handled, and how are you going to approach it. I mean, I think it's important to talk to them about sex and everything else, but we all think it's all about the better sex stuff, but it's the nuts and bolts of how this is going to get done.
It's okay. It is so, that is so true, because as the wonderful, the man, the myth, the legend, Dan Schoaf,
Yes.
Wellspring Community Church said,
Woo-hoo,
you're not
Dan.
just marrying a person, you're marrying a set of circumstances. Yeah. Like, there was a situation once in my life where, like, money for some reason is the most awkward thing to talk about. It's like, I think we make it taboo. I make it taboo. But I asked somebody, I was like, how do I phrase this to where I don't sound like I'm demanding them to, like, pay for things for me, but, like, I accept gender roles. I want them to know as a woman, like, I'm all about the men taking the lead, and I will also still come for things. But I wrote this mini monologue and prayed that I didn't sound like star.
Yeah, right.
But ultimately, it boiled down to something like, how do you view women and money or relationships financially? But it turned out to be a really good conversation. Like, and that to say, you absolutely should talk about money. Well, it opened an interesting door because, like, we had a pretty lengthy, like, phone call about it, but it was really enlightening because it made me realize how many people don't actually talk about it, but also how often we don't even, like, think of it. And I mean, that's like not like, I only am hypersensitive to because, fears in money and also previous relationships and money, and all that jazz. But it more so opened this really interesting conversation, which I think can actually tell you a lot about where you are relationally with somebody, where you actually sit on their pedestal. Not that I'm coming from the perspective of, like, dating and relationships, so, like, that's gonna look different in marriage, Like, I don't think in dating a man should be paying your bills, do things to the extremes as though he's your husband, No. But I do think that in dating and in relationships, or at least personally, like, it is really beautiful, and it says a lot about somebody when they naturally do have a desire to take care, like, when they do have the desire to take care of the bill, like, on dates and things like that. And it's interesting because I was in a relationship with someone from another country in Europe, and I didn't realize it was normal for them to split the bill. And, like, I'm sometimes cool with that, but for the
Dating?
like, like, gender norms are, their version of equality is don't expect the guy to, like, American chivalry. And I was asked at one point if I could buy us coffee, and I felt like my ovaries fell out of my body. Because I was like, maybe he'll think of me and, like, get me a coffee because he knows I'm going to meet him. And he's like, hey, feel free to get me a coffee too. And I, like, cringe smiled, like, here's your caramel macchiato. Anyway, all that to say, I echo what you're saying, and it is so important to have a conversation on money. Like, not the first time you meet somebody, but I think that should be a natural conversation, unless the actions just kind of are already there, and you're
No,
like,
no, I would talk about it.
Speak on it.
No, I would lay it out.
You know, that's true, because that could be the honeymoon phase too.
It
of
could
just,
be, and not
so
only
true.
that, you know, I mean, because you can get stars in your eyes so easily.
That's true.
You can do it
So
as a
true.
single person. You can do it as a married person.
How is a married person?
I love that house. I really love that house. I can see myself in the house. I know exactly what I'm going to do with that house. How are you going to afford that house? You know, how are we going to afford that? If you get that house, you know, are you, as a married couple, are you going to be able, and this is where married couples, like, they will sacrifice and get a better house, and the wife has to go to work, whereas if they took a lower house, you know, lower price house, she could stay home if that was her heart's desire, stay home and be with the kids. But because they're beholden to the house, you know, she has to work and put the kids in childcare, which nowadays it doesn't, like, you work to pay for childcare, it seems like.
Expensive.
And so, you know, the thing is, we should be asking these questions of our spouses. We should be asking these questions of ourselves, like, how am I going to afford it?
Yeah.
You know,
and what will the expectations be of you versus
Yes.
like, how do you feel about gender roles? Just random little question with money. You know,
I-
as in sole provider, like financial.
Well, Dave
gender roles.
Ramsey is very, very, very much on a joint checking account.
Ooh, like sharing it with your spouse.
Yeah. He
Ooh.
also, I was in a relationship for a very long time doing this. He was very much on the point where you sit down, and I remember your parents did this. They did sit down together and they talked about their budget, and they put it down on paper together. I had to do my budget alone, and it was whatever came in. It was whatever, because I wasn't getting any help. There was no. This was not going to be part of the deal here in my marriage at that time, and he wasn't going to participate, and so he did not participate ever in that. So it felt particularly heavy then, as it does now, that it was on me, you know, to make these decisions for our family. And I mean, and the nice thing is, there's a lot of decisions already made, you know, mortgage, lights, groceries. But what about the other ones? How much entertainment? How much, you know, whatever? And, you know, a lot of times those are luxuries. They're not options. But if you have a little extra money, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to spend it? What do we do? What happens if the car breaks down? You know, all these things. So gender roles, well, first off, I think it's imperative, if you're in a relationship, and I mean a married one, where one person doesn't hand it off to the other person, that you do it together.
Ooh, so it's a joint effort along with the joint account.
Just like, and you do the budget once a month. And the neat thing about doing a budget, and Dave, he was amazing. You do it for 3 months. It's pretty streamlined, unless you're like yourself, you're an independent operator, and your salary may fluctuate from month to month. But if you get a regular salary, it's a little bit easier. But still,
starving artists unite.
yes. But still, even then, you know, I mean, you know,
yeah.
we all know, like, okay, this is what we have.
Yeah.
So I think it's imperative. And I honestly, if both people are not doing it, then I would hit the high road. I would say no.
You know, I think with...
And I mean, I hate to say this, because I mean, sex is great, but like, sex is not going to sustain you through a budget session, you know?
Sorry. I feel like that needs to be the preview for this. When I go and grab the soundbite and have like some sort of image, I feel like that...
It's not going to sustain you through old age. It's not going to sustain you when the children are sick.
The condom will pop.
The condom will pop, or when you get pregnant. It's not.
Yeah. Do you feel like if men and women step more fully into manhood and womanhood, it wouldn't create this awkward, oh, you seem too independent in your finances, because they're already kind of there, if that makes sense? So it would just be seen as like a compliment. Because really, like, women, I would see it as, you know, a helpmate. Like, maybe I can
help
Hopefully
you.
enhance your life.
Yeah, I mean that is the whole point. But
Along with some dark humor.
well, I do think too if we're on the same page with stewardship, because I told you that was one of the first things I prayed as a new Christian is, Lord, make me a good steward. I had no idea what it was. Your dad said something about stewardship, and I said, yeah, sign me up. I want to be a good steward. Sure. I still pray that prayer. And so like in any time I'm feeling wonky, spiritually wonky, or physically, as in money-wise wonky, such as last night, I pray, make me a good steward, Lord.
I pray for that too, or like integrity, which I think kind of they coincide.
They do.
Yeah.
They definitely do. So, I mean, I think it's imperative. I think that's where we start. Because stewardship is everything.
I think it's being faithful in small things too,
Yes.
not just monetarily. If you can't do the small, hard things that are honest in your day-to-day life or with other people, or, you know?
That's what I'm saying. I think stewardship is everything. I think stewardship is probably equated, probably has a link in the Old Testament to dominion, taking dominion. It's like, I want to take dominion of this earth according to the Old Testament. I want to be a good steward according to the Lord as best I can. And that's in every aspect and asset.
I thought you were trying to define that, so it didn't sound
I wasn't that. No, but asset or aspect of our lives.
Yeah.
I really do think it boils down to that.
I feel like you have a lot more years of wisdom and like financial success than I do now. What's interesting, I was having this conversation, and I think this is where like it's an interesting blend of like our different generations and how the emotions are the same, but then it's like these different walks of life, because I'm still building in my businesses and figuring out the world of money. And sometimes I'm like, this isn't heavenly currency. This is dumb at the end of the day. It's just paper bills. And but then also wanting to be wise for the future and being a good steward of things and addressing the fears that I have with money and figuring out why and what to do with them. You know? Not freaking out every time I log onto my bank accounts. I'm like, I'm 99 cents under. Even if it's a couple dollars, I'm like, no, it's not at that digit.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Because I had it when I was on my own right out of college. I was like, it has to be this number in the bank, or I start to worry. That was many years ago.
That makes you feel so much less crazy, though.
Yes, I do think it's something to be done with a woman, but I will say this: whether you're a married woman, a married couple, or you're a single, independent woman, quote, when I say that.
An empathic alpha female.
Yes,
that loves gender
roles. The one
roles.
thing I do think is really, really important is tithing.
Ooh.
And I've seen, even as someone who was a new Christian and tithe, I've seen the Lord work through that in amazing ways.
How do you think, do you think just tithing to the church or charities or movements that are doing humanitarian causes, like what are some ways you'd suggest?
Well, I am old-fashioned, so I think your first 10%, and that's just a topping. That's the Old Testament. Like the New Testament is all about a portion. So like, the 10% at least goes to the church, and then over and above do charity things. And when I say charity, your parachurches and things like that. That's my feeling. Other people say they don't do it that way.
They're like, we eat pork too.
Yeah.
Just kidding. The unclean swine.
Well, I really, honestly, that would be something for a pastor to answer, but that's my take on it. But I do think the thing is,
well, if someone doesn't have a home church,
tithe.
though, like, what if someone doesn't currently have like a home church? Like, what are ways they could be a good steward in giving to good causes? Like, do you think it's just Christian causes or humanitarian efforts that?
Well, I think you give anything, you really have to check who you're giving your money to.
Yeah.
And the neat thing is they have rating systems out there that you can check that. Honestly, that's really up to that person. But I supporting a local church, you will have a lot of people online, pastors say, support your local church. David Jeremiah does that, support your local church first. And I think that's really important. you know.
Do you think outside the walls, not to get too rabbit trail, but like that kind of, do you think that can count for something too? Like organizations or local places that are doing good for other people?
That's outside my pay grade.
That's all right. No, there's a question I've literally been thinking about myself. Because I'm like,
No, I still think you should support it. Because you have to realize, you know, we do, the pastors need to live too.
But like screen the churches before supporting certain, but like screen the churches and their teachings and like what they're doing.
Absolutely should check and make sure that you're on point.
Which your church and my church, I have like no red flags with.
I'm very, very, like our church, they even publish the budget so we can all look at it, which is not really something.
That's
they have
ballsy.
it out every year.
That's ballsy.
You know, so I
email the local church and ask for their budget.
Really, seriously, you know, why not? But no, everything else, I still think it does kind of come in line when you tithe. But then again, I'm still waking up in the middle of the night. I do think it is a spiritual battle / motive battle / me battle. You know, I don't know. I'm hoping that we're moving in the right direction, the Lord to me. I know He is.
I mean, I think it's natural and normal to believe that God is sovereign and over finances, but still wrestle with the visceral. I think it's natural and human, but even like acknowledging it, and I think just being candid, like also, Dan, I'm quoting you so many times today, telling God what it's like to be you.
Yes.
Which I think you're doing even in the middle of the night, or like we're doing here
right now
for our episode. No, really, this started in Renee's dining room table over, our perfect bars and paninis and lukewarm coffee.
And also a big heap of worry and wonkiness.
Yep, 100%. And today was freaking out as I'm running errands before I go out of town, then guilting myself because I shouldn't be going to Costa Rica, even though there's no reason not to, and I haven't seen these dear friends in 2 years. You know, all the things. So.
No, I think you should go and enjoy. I'm going to pray for your trip.
Thank you very much.
And what do you think the moral of the story is?
Oh, I feel like you summed it up better than I could. You're more advanced in all this. I mean, I understand you said you've had more trial and error, but...
Well, no, I think ultimately we do what you just said, is that we lean on the Lord.
Yeah, I think that can include money, men. I think perhaps maybe if men leaned in the same way as we're... Well, I think we're suggesting this to men and women.
Yeah, I hope
not as a financial pro from me, but just...
Yeah, we would
spiritually,
love
emotionally
to hear
speaking.
how your thoughts are on this, the financial...
How do you view men and women and money? How do you view money in general? How do you view tithing? Local church, outside the church, humanitarian efforts versus charities.
How do you think
dating and money? You go ahead.
Yeah, how should women pay all the time, or should the men pay all the time? Should the women pay?
That I'm gonna put this as a poll and a podcast.
Oh, you should.
I will.
You will.
Should the man pay for big things, or like if you do a big travel, should you split the bill? When should the woman pay?
But, you know, the one thing I can say...
Just curious.
We want to know these answers, but the one thing I can say is we can celebrate with chocolate right now. Toast! Cheers! Cheers to 1 year.
1 year of morality.
And thank you. I do feel so much better. Thank you, Dr. Anna Gray Smith.
Dr. Renee Leonard Kennedy. Thank you all.
Cheers.
For tuning in on Pray.com, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and wherever else on the web. Have a let's juggle.
Here, wait, you catch mine, I catch yours. I know your hands are all over my... I'm going to go ahead and eat it.
I am.
Hey, I'm Renee Leonard Kennedy.
And I'm Anna Grace Smith.
And we make up
Moral Tea Podcast.
Yes, we're so glad that you're listening to us, and we want to encourage you to like and subscribe at
Moral Tea Podcast on YouTube,
at pray.com,
and Instagram at Moral Tea Podcast.
Yes.
We will catch you every Monday.
Bye.
Peace.